I prayed for times like this. After years, Cars 2, the video game, finally has a decent version to play on PC. If you've known me for long enough, you know that my favorite kart racing game of all time, heck, probably one of my favorite games of all time in general, is Cars 2, the video game. I know, pretty silly claim, but this game has not only shaped me to be the video game fan that I am today, but is also just way too darn fun for its own good. It's so fun, in fact, that I challenged myself when I was 14 years old to collect every version of Cars 2, the video game, and make a YouTube video about it where I saved the world from an evil entity. I mean, technically I have them all, but I still need the Leapster versions. Now, as someone who owns every version of Cars 2, you'd expect me to play this game a lot, right? I must be a Cars 2 fanatic. Well, not really. For a game like Cars 2, you'd have to go out of your way to get the best possible experience. Cars 2, the video game, was released on 7th generation consoles, and that's really the main way you can play this game. Look, I keep my Wii plugged in, but I am not buying a PS3 to do the same. Now, the obvious answer for playing it nowadays would be, well, just buy it on Steam. It's available there for $20, and you can just play it on anything that runs the client. And while that would have been the best option, I don't like my Cars 2 when they look like this. Cars 2 on PC was based on the Nintendo Wii version of the game, which, obviously, compared to an Xbox 360 or PS3, was by far the worst console version of the game. Granted, it wasn't terrible for the hardware, except when it would crash on me all the time as a kid, but having this on PC, especially with the bugs that this version now offers, is not pleasant. For the longest time, if I were to ever go back to Cars 2 at all, it was through the RPCS3 emulator, which did not run the game well at all. My only hope was to wait for some sort of re-release or remaster on modern hardware. As well, I've been hoping for my milk carton to grow legs. It hasn't grown, but it has gained a new smell. All of that was until today. I poured out the milk. The Cars 2, the video game modding community, had a breakthrough. Yes, it exists. You see, absurdly, the arcade version of Cars 2, the video game, has the ability to run on personal computers. This version of the game is based on the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions of Cars 2, and it is basically identical to the original versions in terms of visuals. Where the issue arises, though, is that the arcade port removes tons of abilities, has awkward changes to the control and camera, and completely removes 95% of the game's content. So nobody played it. But what if we were somehow able to take the code and assets from the Xbox 360 version of the game, decrypt them, reverse engineer them, and get them to work on the arcade version of the game, completely overriding it almost entirely and merely using it as a foundation? Oh my gosh. It's beautiful. Welcome to Cars 2 Arcade Essentials. Or Cars 2 Deluxe alternatively, but we'll get to that. This is a native PC version of Cars 2 developed by itsMEF24 that, with a few extra mods, gives you access to the maps from the console version, gives you the ultimate experience visually and gameplay-wise, and it's everything I've ever wanted. This has to be the best way to play Cars 2, bar none. Cars 2 Arcade Essentials takes the base of the arcade version and miraculously restores all of the menu options from the Xbox 360 version of the game, adds back gameplay features that were cut from the arcade version like bashing into opponents, cutscenes, and specific camera angles. Aside from a couple bugs like the controls not being inverted for backwards driving, and certain assets not being loaded in just yet, this is essentially a flawless conversion from the HD console versions. Just looking at the PC version side by side with Arcade Essentials, the difference in how the games look is insane. Nowadays, I'm willing to be more kind to the Wii version of Cars 2, which was originally what the PC version was based on. Instead of trying to achieve a look that replicates the visuals of the original movie in its realistic setting, it takes a more cartoony approach. This becomes obvious with how the map previews on the menus are redrawn instead of being compressed, and the textures getting a complete overhaul to look more cartoony and flat. However, the old PC version makes this look extremely unappealing with unnecessary bloom added on, the lighting being almost completely destroyed, and the higher resolution making the animated look feel far more unappealing. With this newer version though, the game looks absolutely stunning, despite being released 14 years ago? Oh my god! Not to mention, this version comes with numerous resolution options and native ultra-wide. This is just overall a dream come true. Ever since I was a kid, I'd see the images on the back of the Cars 2 box on the Wii and always wondered why it never looked the same in the game. Eventually, when I saw it was on PC and Mac, I thought, surely, this is it. This is the version that I was promised. It wasn't until it came to the Xbox backwards compatibility that I was able to play it, but even then, I didn't play the Xbox that frequently. I never had the desire to have a whole system plugged in just for Cars 2. Now, having 7 copies anyway, that's a different story. Having this game available on a device I use a bit more frequently than an Xbox, at a resolution up to 4K with uncapped frame rates, is an absolute game changer. This allows the game to be accessible in a tolerable state to so many more people now. Millions who didn't get a chance to try a solid version of one of the best racing games ever made will finally get a shot at it. Now, that was all Cars 2 Arcade Essentials. What about Cars 2 Deluxe? It's the same thing. The only difference is that you can write over your Steam copy of the game without having to worry about finding the arcade version online. I mean, going to your local arcade and grabbing the machine. Yeah. To wrap up, I chatted with some of the developers of this mod and the console map restoration to go alongside it to understand fully how this port works and what brought it into reality.
What was the end goal for this project? Was it like to make a PC version, or was it something else?
The goal of Arcade Essentials was to offer a different platform for people to develop their mods for. So you're familiar with the PC version, how it's based on the Wii version. There's a lot of unique stuff you can do with the lighting system and whatnot, but Arcade and the console versions offer a more sophisticated set of tools that you can make your characters come to life for custom models and stuff. So what I wanted to do was say, hey, there's another way you can build all your mods for that will have more potential. You can do more with it. So what I really wanted to do was take the console version and turn that into something that people can actually work with. The thing is, the arcade version is based off of a version of the game that Avalanche developers would have ran on their computers when they were making the game. You know, for Sonic Generations, right? The Devil's Details version for PC, that one is based off of the development builds they were running on Windows already. So any of the bugs that you see in the Devil's Details port were bugs that were already in the game that they just didn't bother fixing because to them they were like, okay, well, this is never going to run on a PC anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Arcade is really like that, except if somebody took the opportunity to remove a shit ton of functionality and make it an arcade game.
Then what is Restoration supposed to be if that's a separate project?
Restorations is pretty much just a mod that, as the name implies, just restores the content that is missing from arcade. As we know, arcade is a port for arcade machines. They ended up simplifying a lot of the existing tracks in the game, as well as removing a good chunk of them. So I think there are only 6 playable tracks in arcade as opposed to the 15. Even with those 6 locations already in the game, they removed a lot of map objects and a lot of ramps and other ways to gain energy, simply because they simplified the controls and they wanted to make it a bit easier to navigate the tracks. So for example, in Oil Rig, at the beginning of Oil Rig, there's a ramp where you go to the right where the explosive barrels are, whereas in the original Xbox 360 port, that ramp isn't there. So what Restorations basically does is it restores all the existing arcade tracks to their original Xbox 360 forms, as well as restoring the missing tracks and the Hunter tracks, or the Hunter locations, into arcade. The reason Restorations is separate from Essentials is because Arcade Essentials is really not the same thing as Restorations. Restorations can work on vanilla arcade, plus the end goal for Restorations is to restore basically all the content from the original Cars 2 Xbox 360 and PS3 versions into arcade. So
were there any inspirations when it came to making Arcade Essentials and restored?
Okay, so I'm sure you, a Sonic tuber, are very familiar with Sonic Unleashed Recompiled. That is that literally changed the world overnight. Actually, the idea to do this did come from conversations about the console version in general. A day that Xenon Recomp and Xenos Recomp dropped, I started having conversations with other modders in the community, as well as other reverse engineers and developers of okay, out of all the Cars games out there, Cars the video game, Cars International, Cars Racer Rama, Cars 2 the video game, Cars 3 Driven Twin, what are our options for getting the good version playable? I don't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole because this is an interview about Cars 2, but I was thinking about all that stuff. So for Cars 2, I didn't really spend a lot of time looking at that game, but I remember Bright telling me about the arcade version, I believe, and I was already intrigued because he told me that it looks like the 360 version, it plays like the 360 360 version is just, it has a bunch of missing features. Bri told me that he's always been like an advocate for like restoring stuff into arcade ever since like the beginning of the Cars 2 modding scene. And then that kind of like made me want to like look into it. And so the real catalyst for all of this was indirectly Unleashed Recompiled.
It's wild to me that Cars 2 finally has a modern version worth playing. Does it kind of hinder the need for an official remaster? A little. I mean, for me, not really, since I play most of my games on consoles rather than PC, but for most people out there interested in Cars 2, this is the one. If you're at all interested in this, please give ItsMeth24 and everyone else involved in this project the biggest props by downloading their mods. Next, we need to mod the Pope in the game and allow him to be playable in the battle mode so he can kill people.